LEDs light up. Fantastic. Welcome back to another video, guys, and as you can tell from that intro and the thumbnail and the title, today we are going to be fitting a carbon fiber steering wheel to the Audi RS3. Now this steering wheel comes to us from a company called Weaponized Carbon, and if you stick around, I'm going to give you a discount code that you can use on their website to save 10% off their products. The steering wheel is stunning. It's got the Alcantara sides, carbon fiber top and bottom, the LED shift lights, and that little data screen in the middle. So I'm really excited to get that on the car. We're also going to be upgrading the interior trims to match that carbon fiber steering wheel. So grab a coffee, get comfy on that couch. Let's upgrade the interior of the Audi RS3. A couple of months ago, I received this random email from a guy called Daniel. He said he was from a company called Weaponized Carbon, and he'd been watching my videos and he thought he might have a product that I would be interested in. He sent me a picture of a carbon fiber steering wheel, and of course my eyes lit up straight away. Anything carbon fiber, I go weak at the knees at, as you know. So I said, yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm just gonna have to, do a little bit of research. So I had a bit of a look around. Had a look at his website, which is pretty cool actually. They do products for all sorts of makes and models of cars, Audi, BMW, even Tesla's on there. So I'll put the link in the description below. Go check it out. I'm sure they've got something for your car as well. Anyway, after a bit of research, I ended up pulling the plug, and a couple of months later, this thing arrived. And can we just take a minute to appreciate the packaging that arrived in? I mean, that's just awesome. Really well protected. And the steering wheel itself is just top notch. The quality is really, really good. We've got the Alcantara sides, we've got the carbon fiber on the top and the bottom, and of course in the center here. And we have the LED screen, which has got the LED shift lights and the little data screen in the middle there. Now these operate from a Bluetooth module and some wiring, which we've got at the back here. And I think we have to do a little bit of wiring in the center as well. So we'll get to that a little bit later. So that's the steering wheel. Let's have a look at the trims. So to complement the steering wheel, we have these interior trim covers in, they are real carbon fiber, even though they are covers, in the same weave pattern as the steering wheel. Now you can find these online in most places. Just make sure if your car is right-hand drive, you actually get a right-hand drive kit, because of course they are different. But just to give you an idea, they're really thin sort of carbon fiber pieces, and they just attach with 3M. So that should be a really, really simple install, but should just tie everything together. Now, I actually got these from some guy on Facebook, but fortunately, Weaponized Carbon actually do this kit as well. So if you want to marry up a nice interior with the trim pieces and the steering wheel, then Weaponized Carbon is a one-stop shop for you. All right, well, I think I've waffled on enough. I think it's time to actually get this steering wheel into the car. So let's crack on. Okay, the first thing we need to do is obviously remove the steering wheel. In order to do that, we need to remove the airbag and some of the interior trims. Now, I'm not going to run through that in this video because I've actually done a previous video which shows you how to do that. If you click out on the pop-out banner in the top right-hand side of your screen, go have a look at that video and then come straight back here. But please make sure that because we're dealing with the airbag, you do disconnect the battery. Okay, with the airbag and all the bits and pieces removed from the steering wheel, to remove the actual steering wheel, you're going to need to grab yourself one of these. It's an M12, I think they call it a triple square bit. I don't know if you guys can see, I think it's got 12 splines or something like that. All right, one thing to make sure of when you do this is to make sure that your steering wheel is dead center, so straight up and down, so that when you put the new steering wheel on and you put it dead center, you know that it's where it's supposed to be and you're not going to be driving down the road with a tilted steering wheel. So let's get that M12 bit in there, and then obviously you'll have to support the steering wheel and just crack it open. It's actually a bit easier than I thought. and there is your steering wheel securing nut. And with that removed, she should just come straight off. There we go, job done. Okay, to remove the paddles from the old steering wheel, grab yourself a T20 Torx bit. There's a screw here and one on this side. Just loosen those off, unhook these little wires from their securing clips, and then the paddles should simply come out from the back of the steering wheel. And there we go, that's the paddles removed. Now, one last thing is this cable that runs along the top. Obviously we need to take that out and put that into our new one. And there we go, the cable is removed, and that's pretty much all you need to do. Now we grab the new one and we put it all back in. Now this cable is a bit of a snug fit, so grab yourself a trim tool or something that's not too sharp, just so you can guide it into its channel a little bit easier. Okay, one thing I did find, if I just pull this cable out of here, is, I don't know if you guys can see it, this little section here needs to be cut out. You can see I've actually done it on this side, just removed it there. It's really, really thin. Just get a sharp Stanley, cut a little channel, and that way the cable can run into that channel and then up here and across over here. Okay, with that simple modification, you can see that that sits in there really snugly now, as it should do from factory, beautifully nestled in that little channel there. All right, with the paddle shifters, obviously feed the cables back through, and then we're going to try and get this little plastic hook engaged into this little slot. Now what I will say, because of the way the Alcantara is laid at the back, we need to push fairly hard and actually stretch the Alcantara into form on the back here. So I obviously don't cut it because that will start a tear, but just gently sort of massage it once you're pushing the paddle shifter in place, and it will go in. It's just a bit of a more snug fit than the ones that came out previously. Okay, there we go guys, actually went in eventually. It does take a bit of work, and I think for me the final step, if you put the screw in then and tighten it up gently, it actually pulls it closed. So the gap at the back now is 0, which is awesome. All right, time to do the other side. Now with this side here, there's actually some cabling in the way that controls the lighting at the top here. So be really careful when you're putting the screw in not to pinch this. You might have to move that out of the way and just make sure that it runs over the top of the bolt. But other than that, same as the other side. Actually, I've just realized there's one more thing that needs to be switched over. These 3 lugs here help secure the airbag in place. So grab your T20 Torx bit again, undo the bolts and just transfer those across to the new one. And of course, they're not just a simple bolt in, bolt out. They're actually sort of buried in the plastic, if that makes sense. So this little part of the plug here is actually inside the plastic. So they're a bit of a bug to get out. Grab your trim removal tool, try and get an edge underneath, and then just kind of pry it out, and the rubber mounting will just let go of it. So that's how you get those out. All right, back in the car. When you're installing the steering wheel, obviously we've made sure that the steering wheel when we took it off was straight, but you'll also notice that there's a little mark on the top and the bottom, and that indicates top dead center. And you'll notice on the steering wheel there is one as well. So when you're putting it back into place, just make sure that those line up just like that. And oh my god, I'm just going to geek out for a minute. How good does that look? Yummy! Okay, now it's time to replace the securing bolt for the steering wheel. Pop that in there and tighten that up. Just like that. Give it a really good tighten. And to be honest, if you don't have the LED and the display, you're pretty much done at this point. For us, however, we have a little bit of wiring to do. So the little red guy here is power and the black one here is ground. I'm going to be feeding power from the cable that runs through here. I think it was this guy here. And you'll see that actually on the other end of this, if I grab the airbag module, we've got a red and a brown, and I'm just going to assume that they are actually power and ground. But before we get to the wiring and putting the airbag module back into place and tidying this all up, we just need to put the center trim back in. So make sure everything's plugged back in and then just push that back into place the same way that we took it off. Okay, that's all in now. Again, it took a little bit of manhandling to get it in there. Keep in mind you're working with brand new Alcantara, so it's quite thick, and you know, there's some edges that either need to be slightly trimmed or sort of just stretched. But if you take your time, it comes together well, and the fitment is great, as you can very well see. Okay, just back at the workbench now, and we've got our airbag module or device, whatever you want to call it. On this little plug here, as I said before, we've got the red and the brown wire, so we're hoping that's ground and 12 volts. So what you want to do is just expose a small section so that you can wrap the steering wheel wires around it so that they can get a feed from the 12 volt and from the ground. Okay, there we go. Hope you guys can see that. We have a small exposed section for each wire, ready to wrap the other cables around. I might even drop a little bit of solder once I've wrapped the cables around, just to make sure the connection is secure, and then we'll wrap some insulation tape around it just to tidy it up nice and neatly. Okay, with those two connections soldered up, it's time to put everything back. So just make sure you plug this guy back into its little socket, and then of course the big yellow airbag light into the top section. And when that's all good, just give it a firm push and we're done. Wow, that is looking fabulous. All right, let's move on to the Bluetooth control module and the OBD2 port. Okay, the last step for installing the steering wheel is to connect up the module with the OBD2 harness. So this is the actual Bluetooth module. This is what speaks to the steering wheel. The receiving end of this is obviously built into the steering wheel itself. And this is the harness that it comes with. So this end here obviously goes to the Bluetooth module. And what you have at this end is an OBD2 male and female. So your OBD2 port is located just here above the accelerator pedal. Usually you access it from the bottom. I've actually taken off the side panel to access it from the top. It's a bit easier for me because I've actually got a few things already plugged in. So all we need to do is actually connect the female end to the existing end that's there, and that will leave the male end for, you know, when people need to plug in for diagnostics or tuning or anything like that. The other end goes to the Bluetooth module, and really that should be it. So now it's just a matter of tucking this all back away. I might actually secure this with a cable tie and make sure it doesn't rattle. We'll put the cover back on, and then it's time to connect the battery. Actually, we should do the carbon fiber trims before we do that, and then we'll connect the battery and see how this thing works. I've already gone around the car and run some rubbing alcohol or isopropyl onto all the surfaces. So it's just a case of removing the 3M backing, which is always such a pain in the ass. Peel them off, And then it's just a matter, really easy, lining it up just like that and give it a good press down. Perfect. And I've got to say, fitment, wow, it's actually bang on. All right, I'm going to whiz around the car, chuck on the other 6 pieces, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, I've kept you waiting long enough. It is the moment of truth. We're going to hook up the battery. Here we go. That looks lovely. Alright, RPM is working. Shift lights are working. Now with the left button you can cycle through, you've got your engine speed, you've got water temperature, battery volts and all that kind of stuff, turbo boost pressure and a whole bunch of other things. And you can actually set up warnings for those as well. So that's pretty cool. Now if you, I think it's hold the left button down, it takes you into like a menu. This one is the displays that we were looking at before. This one allows you to change the brightness of the LEDs. This one is a racing meter for lap timing and 0 to 100. Not sure how accurate. I think that runs off a button push, so you're kind of self-timing, so probably not the most accurate. And then the last one, if we jump into there and hold the right button down to enter the menu. Now we have display brightness. You can set your speed units, so kilometers or miles per hour. This one you can set your temperature units, so Fahrenheit or Celsius. You got some fuel consumption info there. This is your, so the low point when you want the LEDs to start coming on. Then you've got the high point, so I've set this one to 3000. That's when they'll start coming on, and then it'll top out at 6800, and then they'll all start flashing red. That'll give me enough time to shift. So this allows you to adjust the colors that you have. So LED 1, LED 2, 3, 4 and 5. So you can see we've got them set to green, green, yellow, yellow, and then red. And then when it hits the red line, then they all start flashing. But really easy to use, really intuitive once you get a gist of the left and right buttons, short press, long press to take you through different menus. Certain amount of customization available, which is really good. You can set your shift points and all that kind of stuff. The steering wheel in your hands feels really nice. Even though the contours are really aggressive, it doesn't foul on the indicators, still plenty of room for your shift paddles and all that kind of stuff. And of course it looks stunning, it looks really impressive. One thing I will say, if you're the sort of person that drives with your hand on top of the steering wheel, which you probably shouldn't anyway, get the one without the display. You're going to leave fingerprints all over it, you're going to be covering it up anyway, so there's kind of no point. But I reckon we get this thing out into the sun, get a few glamour shots, and then go for a drive and see what it looks like. So out on the road, the first thing you notice is those aggressive contours on the steering wheel. In the Alcantara sections, there's a really aggressive grip to get your hands around. It feels really nice. Feels like you know, you've got really good control over the steering wheel. And then of course, when you get high into the RPM range, wow, those LEDs light up. Fantastic. And what I really like about this, obviously on the data screen, you've got all sorts of information. It'll default to the RPM and the speed, which is great. But if you click 2 screens over, it actually shows you your turbo boost pressure, which is really handy because the boost gauge that you have standard on the dash doesn't tell you any numbers. Now I've got a reading in PSI, or I can set it to KPI or whatever I want, and that's really, really useful. I just love those shift lights coming on. So there we go guys, that is the install of the carbon fiber steering wheel on my Audi RS3. A massive thanks to the guys at Weaponized Carbon for reaching out to me in the first place, and second of all, for producing such a quality product. Now at the beginning of the video, I did promise you a discount code. So if you want to save 10% across the entire range of products that Weaponized Carbon have, then use the code FRAX77 when you check out with their online shop. And that will save you 10% across anything on their website. Doesn't matter what car you have or what product you want, 10% across the range. I'll link all the info in the description below. Go check them out and see if you can't be tempted by a little bit of carbon fiber goodness as well. But that's it from me guys. If you enjoyed the video, give it the old thumbs up and consider subscribing and hit that notification bell as well, as there's lots of good stuff still to come. I'll see you next time.